welcome to Banking Matters. I'm your host, Roger Morris. Today, I'm pleased to welcome on Christy Carpenter. Christy grew up and resides in Springfield, Kentucky. She is a graduate of Kentucky Banking School and the Graduate School of Banking of Colorado. She began her career in banking when she took an entry-level position at Springfield State Bank, which drew on her computer programming background. And over the next 35 years, she has worked in every area of the bank with a focus on technology and board administration. She manages the bank's marketing, audit and exam function, board administration, and oversees bank technology. In 2016, she accepted an invitation to join the bank's board of directors as the first female director. And she serves on every committee of the bank and is currently executive vice president. And with that, I'm pleased to say welcome, Christy. It's always good to have another Kentuckian on the podcast.
Well, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Good. We're excited to get into this. So our first question for every guest is, how did you get into banking?
Well, I did not want to be a banker. I'm not good at math. I was told in high school, whatever you do, don't go into any math field. But I was good at spreadsheets and good at computer programming and that logical thinking. And so, I basically took the job at the bank as a bookkeeper. So I would have good hours that aligned with my children's school schedule. And so I just thought, well, I'll do what I've got to do as long as I need to do this. And I just got addicted to it. And there's so many different jobs in a bank that, I love being creative. And so, I noticed the bank didn't have a logo and I created one and they didn't have a jingle. So I sang one. I record all the bank's radio ads on the radio and I've done that ever since I started working here. So, I just kind of found a way to make it my own. And it's been great. It's been a great career.
Well, great. Yeah. And I feel like it's so many people come on here and say they had no intention of getting into banking. I myself had no intention of getting into banking either. And then look where we are. We're recording a podcast about it. Well, when we first connected, you were described to me as a creative person, and you mentioned that you love working on the advertising and marketing side. So let's just start there. So what is your involvement on that side, and what's your process, and how do you approach, bank marketing advertising?
Well, it used to be really simple, but it's not anymore. Now there's quite a bit of sensitivity that surrounds that and a lot of regulations. So, when we create a bank ad of any kind, it has to go through our compliance department. I use Compliance Alliance. It's very good for helping me to navigate that minefield of messing up the marketing.
Okay. Well, does that, obviously the regulations change based on the type, of ad and what you're advertising, but does your approach change based on if you're advertising on the deposit side, lending side? What are your first thoughts when you think of advertising?
Well, for our bank, I think, I didn't really understand until I started working here how important it was to have a community bank. I thought, well, a bank is a bank. And I quickly learned that, our motto is built and growing on friendly service. And to get the loyalty of the community is so important, to serve them like friends and to call them by name, to know them by name, to understand their businesses, to do what you can to help them grow their businesses. It's just a great partnership that we have here. We've got about 86% of the deposit market share here in our community. And people that come here that open an account, they just never leave because they love the service. They love the personal service. We still answer the phone. We still, we don't use AI for anything. I mean, we're just people helping people. So when I create an ad, it's important, first off, for me to convey that, the image of the bank, the personality of the bank, the true vision and heart of what we do here. It's not about making money, although, we do fairly well with that. It is about serving our community. So every ad, that's the underlier, very important to get across how much we care about our community.
Gotcha. And then you can let your creativity roll.
Yes. Yeah. I like a lot of clip art. My daughter's a graphic designer and she's always getting on me. She's like, Mom, no, cool it with the clip art.
Well, you mentioned your jingle. We won't have you sing any jingles on the podcast unless you really want to.
I don't mind. You want to hear a little of it?
Sure, why not?
All right. A warm hello A friendly smile, real people you're connecting to, extraordinary service, leading the way to your future, a personal touch, Springfield State Bank. Sounds a
Well,
lot better in the recording studio, but it kind of sums up who we are. And, plays on the radio. I always wanted to have a song on the radio, so now I do.
I love it. Do you prefer the radio side more than any other?
We get a lot of great feedback from the radio. It plays in our grocery stores. People here in our rural community, they still really like to tune into the local station, and they always tell me, I heard you on the radio today, and that it makes me feel good that they listen, and when we have a new product and I put it out there, they're quick to respond. So yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about maybe the rural urban divide when thinking about advertising. It makes a lot of sense that radio would be a good medium for
Hmm.
where your bank is located.
For
Well,
sure.
sure. Yeah. So you had mentioned, I mentioned in your background that you have a computer programming and technology background. I didn't mention in your bio that you're on the Independent Community Banking Association's cybersecurity task
Yeah.
force, and that you came in with, computer programming in mind. So, what was your role like when you first started, and how did that evolve?
So when I first started at the bank, we had one live computer. Everything else was just dumb terminals attached to a processor in another town. And they really didn't have much on the computer, they just had it. So I started loading things onto it, our loan review process. I learned how to do the asset liability management piece, and I put it on the computer. And, so all the calculations would take place flawlessly. And then all the board reports, they were doing the budget on a typewriter. That was back in 1989. So, every month they were pecking it out on the typewriter. And so, I started building that on the computer. Back then the software was called Quattro. It was before Excel existed. And so, um, I built that and grew the database. And in a few years, I realized how much money the bank could save if we went in house with our processing instead of going through a processor. So I set up a local area network in the bank, and we brought our processing in house, saved us a ton of money over the years. We're still in house, and we do very well with it.
Gotcha. Well, yeah. So you mentioned that you set up an in-house processing center, or transitioned into it, and it created a lot of savings and efficiency. So can you describe what that process was like?
Well, so, we had to do a lot of research. I visited with some other community banks that were in house. We did a risk study. Of course, back then, that was in the year 2000. We didn't have all this cybercrime. I remember when we first went with this product, we didn't even have a firewall. I mean, it was just before that was a thing that was so important. And I can remember setting up our first firewall and, locking out sites. And then, and now, I mean, it's just full blown. We have the latest and greatest. We have great security around our bank. We get through all of our exams and audits flying colors, and I feel very secure in our setup here. I like that we're responsible for it, and we don't trust an outside firm, to keep our bank data secure.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you've personally have seen the bank evolve on the technology side. So what are the biggest changes that you've noticed over the last 35 years?
Crime. Yeah, fraud. I set up our debit card system when we first got debit cards. I can remember, how nice those were. And then when we started having skimmers on ATMs, we experienced that. And it's like playing whack-a-mole. And it's like, we got our debit card program very secure. We enhanced the security on that with our vendor. And so, we have minimal debit card fraud. Now it's turned over to check fraud. Now we're having a lot of check fraud and ACH fraud. So, the crimes are just, I just really can't understand how somebody can just sit in their basement and that's all they want to do is hack into a bank or hack into somebody's account. And, we've had people calling in here pretending to be our customers, trying to get their online access. And I mean, we weren't born yesterday, and we catch on to that stuff pretty quick. But still, it's just the fact that they're trying, and it takes up a lot of our time and resources, to combat that every day.
No, I'm sure, and I kind of wanted to, my next question was going to be like, what lessons of the past and, watching the technology evolve over the last few decades, did you find most useful for today? But it sounds like that might just be that anything could potentially be used for fraud or crime. Is that right?
Every single thing. I mean,
Yeah.
when we first heard of the postal, people breaking into mailboxes or stealing mail out of mailboxes, I thought, surely people aren't doing that. But yeah, they really are. And so, never think anything is just crazy, because it happens. People will go to any lengths just to steal, just, to take from somebody else. And so, the biggest lesson I think for us is to stay ahead of the game. Don't just get just enough technology to get you by. Go ahead and, buy the farm. Go ahead and commit totally, and get the most robust solutions you can find to keep your bank data safe.
Well, that attitude too is not something I think I see with every bank. Would you say that you guys are kind of ahead of the curve for, a rural or similarly situated bank? It sounds like you all are very on top of the technology space.
I think so. I think so. We work very hard on it. We have a great security officer here, and he stays, educated. He goes to a lot of seminars, and he's in a lot of groups, and on committees where he learns of all the upcoming attempts that we are to look out for, and he's also very good at forensics when something happens and tracking it down. So those are key, for a community bank these days.
And what advice would you have on, I guess, communicating that, bank wide to all your staff? What do you do to make sure all of your employees are, literate in the technology space and, remaining vigilant?
We have trainings. We have trainings here. Whenever we do have an attempt, just last week had an attempt on a customer, and we send that out to everybody, and they know to be vigilant and to be extra careful, to be on the lookout. And it seems like when we get one of those calls, then we'll start to get two or three or four, and so just we really communicate a lot, even just walking around and meeting with the tellers, whenever it happens, and going out and saying, so this just happened, be on the alert. And everybody is very, very keen to that. We've just learned to be vigilant about that.
Gotcha. Well, I guess to pivot a little bit here, I mentioned that you serve on your bank's board and that you're in charge of board administration, and much like technology, every bank has a board, right? So what advice would you have on effective board administration?
Well, some of the things that we've done in the last few years, we've created a board portal where we upload all of our documents ahead of time before the meeting, so our board members can review them, and that way they can come prepared to the meeting. Before that, they just walked in and bam, there it was on paper. So, that's been very effective. Um, we have we communicate with them via text message. If there's ever anything they need to know, I put it on the portal and I'll alert them. Log into your portal, take a look at this, and send me feedback. And that's been incredibly helpful. And we've gotten training for our board. We've got just added a new board member, so she's going to be taking on the training, and we love to expand their knowledge on banking. We have a compliance officer that is so good at training. She comes in every board meeting, and she does a training on a regulation. It'll be maybe 15-20 minutes that she'll go through a certain reg and simplify it to where a non-banker can understand. And that really is helpful, because then when we go through an exam and the regulators come in and go through an exit meeting, they're very well versed in what all these regulations mean.
Well, what advice would you have on, what you've seen your compliance officer do on, breaking down, the banking side and the regulation side to a non-banker?
Well, she does a lot of real life stories. Like,
Mhm.
she'll be explaining a reg and say, for example, this is something that happened, and tell a story of a customer we had, maybe, I don't know, somebody that's doing some what are the payday, the payday loans,
Right.
trying to kind of run that out of a store that he's not authorized or she's not authorized. She'll give real life experiences, and she's read a lot of stories online from other banks, and so she can give real life experiences of this is the reason this reg was created. This is exactly what we do to mitigate it. So I think that really helps when they can see like a real life example.
Gotcha. Well, so next I want to ask you about this. So you were described as having a whatever it takes attitude, and I'm sure anyone who's listened, to me read your bio sees that you're involved with every facet of the bank. So I mean, you have to have some advice on time management, on organization. How do you stay on top of it all?
Well, I mean, we've got a great president, and he is on top of it all. He is he's kind of all knowing, omnipresent. He's everywhere, and he sets a great example for the rest of us. We all try to do our jobs that way. I think the key to success for any bank is the people you hire, the people that work for you. The tellers are the face of the bank, and when you have a customer to come in and they've had fraud and they're upset and they're scared or they feel violated, to have a friendly face, a calming voice, and someone to sit down and spend the time to explain how it happened and then where we go from here, and how the bank is here for you is so very important.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Well, you'd also mentioned that you're, very involved on the, audit and exam function. I mean, I think a lot of what you're involved with tends to all run together. Technology is a part of everything. How do you compartmentalize, each of the things that you're involved in?
Well, I'm very ADD, and so I don't really compartmentalize. I feel like I've got my hand in three or four different pots at one time, but that's the best way for me to work. I really enjoy an exam. I know that's kind of strange.
Haven't heard
To
that
me, it's
before.
like, to me, it's like when you're in school and you've studied hard all year and you take the final, like you pass, you nailed it, you did great, you're on task. If we didn't have exams, we wouldn't be accountable. And so, it just makes the bank accountable. We align with our regulators to make sure that we're doing things the way they mean for us to do them. Um, and it's great, for our stockholders and our board members to have that confidence in us that this matters so much, is so very important to us. To abide by all the regulations, and audits throughout the year are, they're a lot of work, but also a good practice run for the exam. And again, just exposing anything that we've missed, anything that any loose ends we need to tie up, and they're very effective. And I really enjoy that process.
Gotcha. Great. Well, Christy, I have really enjoyed having you on. But as our last question, we always like to ask guests to share one piece of advice with our listeners. Doesn't have to be banking related. What is your one piece of advice?
You know, um, Something that my dad always told me that I can apply in every area of my life is never quit on a bad day. Um, you know, I, I, I serve as a chaplain in a local hospital, and I get to talk to a lot of people that are kind of down on their luck, or just feel like giving up and don't feel like they're ever going to get better. And I say tomorrow is going to be a new day. His mercies are new every morning. And so if you want to give up, let's wait till a good day. Wait till you have a good day. And, if you're at work, and I know bankers, we get bogged down and we get frustrated with all this fraud. We get frustrated with all the regulations we have to abide by. And sometimes you just think, well, I just want to do something different. Well, but you're going to have a good day again. You're going to have a good day. So never quit on a bad day.
Gotcha. I couldn't agree more. Wise words. Well, Christy, I really appreciate you coming on. I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about. We really appreciate it. And to everyone else, that's Banking Matters.